The SEC's last chance for a championship lies in the hands of the Texas Longhorns, but is the rest of the conference rooting for them? Time to get the SEC squad together.
You're talking ball with the SEC squad, sponsored by Game Time. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up, you're part of the SEC squad.
And welcome into the SEC squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another, not a wild week across the SEC, wild week for one team. That's about it. Basketball is underway, but football, that we have one more team left. And today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's welcome in our panel. First off, it is Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn. We've got Luke Robinson, host of Locked On Bama, and John Miller, host of Locked On Mizzou. I am Chris Gordy, host of Locked On SEC. Gentlemen, welcome in. Our buddy Jonathan Davis, host of Locked On Longhorns. I know he's busy this week. He's supposed to be joining us, but I was all ready to let him go defend Texas. But let's pose the question, guys. Throw it out to you. Are you rooting for Texas as the lone SEC representative still in the playoff?
I'm not. I've always been against the whole SEC pride thing. You got to root for the SEC when they're playing non-conference games or in these bowl games. I mean, most of these teams, I don't like you guys during the season. Why do I all of a sudden like you guys when you're playing other non-conference teams? So I'm not pulling for Texas in the playoff, but I guess I somewhat get the SEC pride argument, but I don't know. I just can't quite get there.
I'm not pulling for them, but for different reasons. The only SEC team I don't pull for, just being honest, is Auburn. I just can't pull for them in anything ever because I'm an Alabama fan. To me, that's what makes you an Alabama fan. Just like I bet Zach hadn't pulled for Alabama any, and so I'm fine with that. I think that's how it should be. But I'm not pulling for Texas because I went to the Peach Bowl. My son goes to Arizona State. He got media credentialed for the game. I got to go. I got a suite, S-U-I-T-E suite seat.
What a flex.
For $100 on Game Time. By the way, shout out to our sponsor. Wow. And I got to sit in the suite while he was at the media. And the thing was, the suite wasn't even filled, but there were about 7 Texas fans in there with me. And, look, they were hammered, which more power to them. I'm not here to say, but they were about as tough to be around for a guy that had no skin in the game. I really wasn't pulling for Arizona State because my feelings about blue bloods versus Cinderellas. I'm a blue blood guy. I want to see, this Final Four is great for me if Alabama's not going to be in it. I don't want to see SMU in there. So I didn't really have a pulling interest, but they were. And they weren't even near Arizona State people, and they were still giving them heck.
Can you give us an example of some of the things that they said?
I mean, just the whole. I can't give you an example. It is the air of confidence,
the aura,
hoity-toityness. And I have a bunch of oil money, and I flew over here on a jet, and then that jet landed on a helicopter, which the helicopter brought me in here, and I was carried in, like they carried people in Egypt back in the day. I mean, that was just the air of confidence from them that was so hard to deal with. And I was just like, hey, just enjoy them. Having fun is great, but they were just, it was tough. It was a tough.
And you didn't even get to meet Allie Larder either. Come on. That's what you should have expected. Shout out for you landman viewers out there.
You're describing this fan base, and Gordy, John, y'all tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like you just described the Alabama fan base.
Yeah, I was going to say, Luke is describing what we've all gone through the last decade of the arrogant fan base. This is what we've had to hear.
First of all,
man,
we only think we're better than people in football. They thought they were better than us in everything, and frankly, they might be.
Are you kidding me?
No,
are you kidding me?
I think they are better than me.
With basketball?
But I don't think they're better than everybody at the Mercedes Dome.
Well, they are defending national champs in rowing. I'll give them that. And then they did just steal A&M's baseball coach who got to the championship. So there's that.
So I want to interrupt the argument here, the possible pissing match here between the Alabama and Auburn hosts here. Just to give a little bit different perspective, I'm a Missouri fan. So to me, do I root for the SEC or not? Very much a case-by-case basis. And in the case of Texas, the answer is no. For those of you who might not remember, Texas basically tried to be the bull in the china shop of the Big 12 conference. They tried to shove the Longhorn network down the entire college football landscape's throat, more importantly, cable subscribers, and they said, we're good. And then Missouri wisely left the conference for greener pastures, only to then be blamed for the eventual basic collapse of Texas. And to see them crawling back to the SEC, do you think I'm rooting for them? No, I am not.
Well, let me give you guys the counter here, because like Luke is talking about, I've got a lot of friends who are Texas fans, and yes, they're very prideful. But the internet comments we have gotten the last few weeks from Ohio State fans, Penn State fans, and Notre Dame fans, who all think they're God's gift to football, do not let an all Big Ten championship happen, because, my God, they're already peacocking about Michigan winning the title last year and beating out the big bad SEC. Don't let them have an all Big Ten title where the Big Ten goes back-to-back national champions. They will absolutely rub that in the SEC's face and say, y'all suck. Saban's gone. The conference is not the dominant conference anymore, and the Big Ten is superior now.
I think that loses a little bit, though, if Texas makes it. Like, I mean, they just got here.
Right.
And I think that makes us look worse. Like, if we're being 100% honest, if they just come in here and I mean, they looked like the best team in the SEC for the vast majority of the year. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that really helps our case. I kind of think we're, danged if you do, danged if you don't, Gordy.
That's true. And that's why I pulled for Georgia in the SEC title game. And, frankly, if Georgia's quarterback doesn't get hurt, I know everybody's just, lauding Notre Dame with praise right now. If Carson Beck's in there is as not Carson Becky as he was towards the end of the year, I think Georgia still wins that game. And then you have Georgia in there against Penn State, and you have Texas against Ohio State, and that would probably be more like everybody saw it coming. And here's the thing: if the Big Ten does get both teams in there, if it is Penn State, Ohio State, I'm going to say this: I think they deserve to crow some. I'm fine with that. I mean, we did it when it was Bama, Georgia, when it was Bama, LSU. I mean, we did it. So I'm fine with that. And then maybe it'll make us pick our game up, And the other thing, Ohio State will have certainly earned it. They had to play Tennessee, who a lot of people picked Tennessee to beat them. Then they had to go out west and play the team that was the number one seed, who had a bye, who already beat them in the year, and they blew their doors off. Then they got to go to Dallas to play Texas. By the way, can Texas get it any more easier too?
Yeah, of course Texas is playing in Dallas.
They go Atlanta, Dallas, Atlanta, Dallas, Atlanta, Dallas, Atlanta. I mean, it's crazy the way that Austin, Atlanta, Dallas, Atlanta is what I meant.
Yeah, I think Southwest has 25 flights a day from Dallas to Atlanta back and forth.
They all own their own jets, though, Gordy, so they don't need them.
I think it's also worth noting Ohio State. I mean, to get this good, they needed Ole Miss running back Quinshon Judkins. They needed Alabama safety Caleb Downs. I mean, they had to come poach from the best conference out there to get to this spot, right?
Can you imagine somebody wanting to leave Alabama? Can you imagine that?
I mean,
a lot of people are doing it right now. A lot of people are doing it. It's a cool thing to do.
But only Caleb Downs ended up in a better situation for the most part. The guys that we're losing are ending up at Syracuse and other smaller places. I'm fine with that. With your little transfer portal joke.
Well, Texas took your number one receiver. Like, let's don't ignore that.
Well, he actually I think he had better statistics at Alabama, which is very bizarre.
He's been injured. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't been healthy, but they do say that Isaiah Bond is healthy, ready to go. But look, I just thought it was a fun conversation to kick around. And most of the SEC people I've talked to this week say they're not rooting for Texas, but I'm just letting you know that's fine. But God forbid, don't let Notre Dame win this. I mean, you want to talk about arrogant fan bases. Those people were peacocking. I said, you haven't been relevant for 40 years. And they called me out and went, excuse me, sir, 36 years to be exact. Like, shut up, go away. We like you being irrelevant. If Notre Dame wins this thing, God forbid, it's going to be hell for everybody. Same with Penn State.
Would you rather it be? I'd rather it be Penn State or Notre Dame than Ohio State, though.
At least Ohio State's won one recently, so at least they just add to their, it's like, all right, whatever. They're supposed to be good. They were supposed to be one of the best teams in the country this year.
Let's also say Penn State's been through enough the last 20 years where their fans, I got to give their fans some credit. Their fans have been put through the ringer, and, the NCAA overstepped their bounds with them a little bit, if you ask me, because that's not the NCAA's field, and they got involved when they shouldn't have. And Penn State fans probably deserve a title, but the only thing I don't like about Penn State is this. They got the easiest path of all so far. Yeah. And see, I think Penn State should have to beat Ohio State to get to play for the national championship. That would have been better because Ohio State's their bugaboo. And so I think they should have had to play them in the semifinals. I don't know how you make that work, but obviously this whole playoff thing has some flaws we got to fix.
All right, when we return, we will talk a little bit about, is the SEC dying? I've read the headlines everywhere. It's at an all-time low. We're going to discuss that more here on the SEC Squad, talking ball next. Back to the squad in just a second, but I want to remind you guys about our friends at Rocket Money. Look, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It's definitely happened to us. You have a few subscriptions that you don't even realize that you're still paying for, and Rocket Money, look, they're going to make it so easy for you to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when you use all of the app's premium features. Go cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Our SEC Squad continues here on SEC Squad Edition. And guys, we throw out the question. I've been reading way too much this week about how the SEC is dying. Their reign of college football is over. By the way, 13 of the last 18 national championships. If Texas wins this, that's 14 of the last 19. Whatever, no big deal. Mm-hmm. Is the SEC dead? Have we hyped up this conference too much?
Well, Dad, I'll just say, obviously, that's absurd. But the idea, it's interesting, you go back 18 years, that does predate the college football playoff. And I do think that in a 2-team system, in a 4-team system, I actually think it makes it a little bit easier for the SEC to win a national championship. I don't know what you guys think about that, but it sort of cuts out the fluff a little bit. And anybody, I don't care who you are, having to win 3 straight games, which at the very least you're going to have to do that. Most teams would have to win 4 in a row, obviously. That's a really tall order, and I actually think that brings in more variance, more injury possibilities, all that kind of stuff.
Won't every team that's left have to have won 4 in a row this year because all the bye teams lost? I mean, that's just an interesting caveat.
Yeah, this year.
Very true.
But, no, the SEC is not dying, just as you were talking about that. I pulled. Here's the team recruiting rankings for this year. Is Texas 1, Bama 2, Georgia 3, Oregon 4, Ohio State 5. Kudos to them. Auburn 6, LSU 7, A&M 8, and Michigan 9, Tennessee 10, Florida 11. So you got 3 Big Teners in there, and everybody else is an SECer. So I don't think this league is going anywhere. The only thing that's going to be interesting is, the transfer portal and NIL stuff. Everybody keeps talking about, well, it's leveled the playing field. First of all, who's in the Final Four again? 4 of the biggest brands in college football, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't think it's leveled the playing field. But secondly, where it has really helped, Notre Dame's, for instance, they usually had guys that were pretty good, that were like, okay, I'm going to take my chances going pro and maybe be a second, third, fourth rounder and still get paid, in the NFL. Well, now they can come back to school another year, improve their craft, and get paid maybe even more than they would have gotten paid had they been a fourth rounder. That's where it really helps them. And that's, because they have a lot of experienced dudes on that team. They got some players.
Yeah.
Real quick, just to add, you said the recruiting rankings. How about the transfer portal rankings? 7 of the top 11 are SEC teams. Mizzou is number 11 right there.
Yeah,
baby.
Yeah.
I love hearing
and
that.
I think some of that is quarterback play too. Like, I don't think there's a cat next to you, Gordy. I think quarterback play will. I mean, I think it dipped a little bit. I mean, even some of the big names that we talked about. Like, I thought Lenora Sellers was awesome this year, but like South Carolina, even though they kind of had an outside shot towards the end of the season, like we all knew South Carolina probably wasn't going to be a playoff team. Carson Beck, I mean, I know he got hurt, but like, he wasn't the guy that we kind of thought he was going to be. Milroe at Bama, like it depended on the week, and when the fan base was turning on him or not, it was really, really hard to keep up with. But it just seems like the ebbs and flows of all this. I mean, even Texas, the remaining team, like, do they like their quarterback? Like, I think this is going to level out this offseason. There's going to be more clear stability at a lot of different quarterbacks throughout the conference.
Well, yeah, I think that's going to be the strength next year is you look at this conference and say, all right, is the SEC dying? I mean, Arch Manning at Texas is the preseason Heisman favorite already on a lot of sports books. So, like, you got that. Georgia, they're going to bank on Gunnar Stockton. We'll see. There was some good there that we saw. Now they got more weapons. Actually got wide receivers who can catch the football coming in. Tennessee with Nico.
Garrett Nussmeier.
Nussmeier back at LSU. Lenora
Sellers coming back.
Carolina. Marcel Reed at A&M. Like, it's pretty low.
Hold on, you're missing one. Keep going. Keep going.
He wants you to say Jackson Arnold or Arnold Jackson. I can't remember his 2 first names. But
well, he ran the ball 1,000 yards against your team, so you should know his name.
I understand. I understand. Thanks for reminding me.
Sure.
But anywho, Diego Pavia. So, I mean, the leagues, and in fact, here's the other thing I think is going to be better about next year with the SEC and why the quarterbacks will be better. Even just using Alabama for an instance, they're going to have a quarterback that can throw it better. Now, they're not going to be as good a running quarterback, but whoever it is going to be able to throw it better. And you're going to have Jeremy Bernard coming back, Ryan Williams coming back, and you got the kid from Miami that just transferred in. You look at Auburn, for instance. You got Jackson Arnold, who I think, I don't know it, but I believe him to be better than the quarterback situation than they had last year. They also have Eric Singleton coming in. Cam Coleman's still there. They've got some weapons to throw to. You look at Nussmeier. Yeah, he lost his 2 top receivers this year, but he brings in who? Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. He brings in Barian Brown from Kentucky, who I absolutely adore. What does Georgia do? They have no weapons this year. They go get Zachariah Branch. No offense to John Mateer or anybody else on the transfer portal list. Zachariah Branch was the guy. If you had said you can have one guy from the portal, that's who I would want.
Yeah, and by the way, they added Noah Thomas from
A&M,
and who else? Micah Bell from Vanderbilt. So I mean, they've been adding, and it's I mean, look, that to me is the simple starting point of is the SEC going anywhere? But again, what could happen, guys, is with the great quarterback play and all that. Maybe it means more parity again next year in the SEC, because apparently what people judged the strength of the conference on was when you had that one dominant 12-0 team. And we all kind of looked at it and went, no, like that, it means Bama and Georgia were awesome and everybody else kind of stunk. This was a year where we saw parity at an all-time high in the SEC, so that very well could happen again next year.
That is a good point. Like, the irony of it is, sure, you didn't have the dominant team, but there were like 5 or 6 like pretty good teams, but in today's age, it's like, how far do you make it in the playoff, or how many teams do you get in the playoff? That's when you do this, like that's all that matters, sadly.
Right.
Well, and when people say the SEC is dying, I mean, does it not mean and people always say, well, that doesn't matter. Does it not mean anything to anybody that every year the SEC has the most people drafted, that the SEC has the most people in the NFL? I mean, that should mean what it means is you played those guys all the time. That's such a huge deal.
I will also add to, and John, I want to hear from you, consider the source. like, who are the people saying this? Well, let's start with Joel Klatt, who is a Fox employee who has the Big Ten, the big noon kickoff, who, of course, he's going to talk up the Big Ten as the best. He's been saying the SEC stinks for 3 years because he doesn't get paid by them. Who else is saying it? Oh, Nicole Auerbach, who just changed jobs to NBC Sports and does Notre Dame pregame. Guess what? Right. She thinks the SEC sucks now. It's like there's nobody that works. Kirk Herbstreit's not up there. It's not the people that work for ESPN and ABC that profited the most off the SEC this year. It's the ones who work for the other companies.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing of talking your own book for sure. The Big Ten's going to talk up the Big Ten. The SEC is going to talk up the SEC. It's all big money. That's all this is. It's big TV money. Of course, you're going to lean toward your partner. Why wouldn't you? That's just good business.
Yeah. Well, look, are we biased? Sure, but again, the numbers speak for themselves. Until the SEC goes 3-4 years without winning a championship, and they could. We'll see, but look, man, the numbers.
And like Texas is still there. Like it's the funny thing. It's like the SEC still has a chance to win the whole thing.
And Zach is like hell for him.
Hey, let me tell you something. Next year, very early on, all these debates are going to happen again. You got Alabama at Florida State, and I know Florida State went 2-10 this year, but they've hit the portal pretty hard. They're clearly going to be better. They can't be worse. Then
Gus Malzahn, baby.
Huh?
Gus Malzahn
offense taking on Alabama again.
He's ready to go. Yeah.
You've got the battle of the true Death Valleys. You got Nussmeier and those new guys and Harold Perkins, who's coming back, heading over to Clemson to play Klubnik, who's coming back, and that young bevy of wide receivers they have. This is Danny Cannell's dream if those two games go ACC's way. And then you got Texas traveling to Ohio State. Why Texas went to Michigan this year and Ohio State next year, I don't know, but that's what they're doing. And, you even got Auburn going to Baylor. I'm just picking games out off the top of my head. If Baylor were to win that game somehow, I mean, the SEC is going to have to flex its muscles early.
By the way, I know Luke and Zach are natural enemies in the wild, but I actually think Luke's point about NFL draft picks and the SEC buoys Zach's point about really was just all about the quarterbacks this past season to me. And if that evens out, it changes next season, that trend, I think you'll see the usual SEC national champion, more than likely anyway.
And by the way, I heard a stat today about, speaking of quarterbacks and how important they are, just look at the playoffs. Like every quarterback except for Jalen Hurts, who was a second rounder, and Russell Wilson, who I think was a third rounder, was a first round pick. So the whole thing is, if you don't have good quarterbacks, it doesn't matter about the rest of your team. You can have a great defense, you can have a great kicker, you can have a Derrick Henry at running back, you can do whatever you want to. But if you don't have a good quarterback, none of it matters.
Yeah, it's a great point. And let me just say, before we finish this segment, Zach, I'll pose this question to you. If Sark and Texas were to build a dynasty and win 2 of the next 3 championships, but it means Alabama misses the next 3 playoffs, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
He'd take that right now.
Absolutely.
That's an easy answer for sure.
That wasn't even a good question.
There's still be and the crazy thing is, Gordy, there's still be people in Tuscaloosa talk about how great DeBoer is. It'd be insane.
Hey, I'll say this, though. The other part of rooting against Texas for conference pride and all that is you, like Auburn, LSU, Alabama, have lost recruits to Texas. So Sark winning kind of hurts you in recruiting. So I get that argument as well. So,
well, especially Bama, because they don't want to recruit in-state players anymore.
Yeah, we have just relented to the magical greatness that is Hugh Freeze. That's what we've done.
I guess so.
Speaking of Hugh Freeze, when we return here on the SEC Squad, there was an interesting article this week on ESPN, Adam Rittenberg, some early hot seat talk. What SEC coach do you think is most on the hot seat heading into next year? We'll discuss. Run along here with your SEC Squad, and guys, good article, Adam Rittenberg over at ESPN, talking about the way too early hot seat looking ahead to next college football season. And I kind of like he broke it up into categories of coaches. And the first category he had, it was called We Want This to Work. And he had a couple of SEC coaches in there, Brent Venables at Oklahoma, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, and Hugh Freeze at Auburn. It's kind of that attitude of, we like you. We're rooting hard for you. but don't F this up. I'll throw that out there. Of those three coaches, who do you think is most on the hot seat heading into 2025?
Sorry, list those for me again real quick.
Hugh Freeze, Kalen DeBoer, Brent Venables.
I would say Venables.
I think Venables, right?
Yeah.
I just think in terms of time and just, I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're playing kind of disgusting football lately, to be honest, coming off of Lincoln Riley offensively, Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray. That was a little bit more exciting than watching, I'm sorry, Zach, cover your ears, Jackson Arnold fumble the ball late against Missouri for a scoop and score. That was a little bit gross if I'm an Oklahoma fan.
Well, in Oklahoma did have Dylan Gabriel, and they shoved him out the door to get Jackson Arnold to play. And now they shoved Jackson Arnold out essentially to get this guy, John Mateer. So I do think the answer is Venables. I do think again, it's not just because I'm the Bama guy. I do think Hugh Freeze's seat is at least a little warm simply because, you got to get a big win. I mean, I guess Texas A&M counts, but because Texas A&M faltered so much after Auburn too and lost the South Carolina game, it took a little bit of the shine off of that. But I do think Auburn's going to be a lot better next year. I mean, I really do. And I think the schedule sets up nicely for them. They get Bama and Georgia in Jordan-Hare Stadium. So they might get one or both of those two teams next year. Consider there's so much turnover between Bama and Auburn. Between Georgia and Alabama.
I think they would really have to fall off. Obviously if he goes 4-8 or 5-7, he's gone. At 6-6, I think there's a world where they keep him even. I don't think Auburn's going to go 6-6, but
is that where Auburn is now? Is Auburn Vandy now? 6-6 is okay.
I just don't think firing him helps the program at that point, especially if he keeps the recruiting up and the player retention. Now that's a big if. If you go 6-6, I think your pitch has to change a little bit. But once again, I don't think that happens. But I do think Brent Venables is most likely to get fired.
Yeah, but coaches. Recruiting, Zach, is so different now. It's not Hugh Freeze. It's not his charisma that is getting people there. It's NIL deals and collective deals. That's what's happening. And so everybody can recruit if they got enough money. And so I think that Auburn's going to look at it. If he goes 6-6, I know several Auburn people would be like, yeah, they got to fire him.
Well, if you think about it, who you have to recruit now? You got to recruit the big donors. That's why John Calipari is no longer at Kentucky, as far as I can tell, because he's buddy with the Arkansas Razorbacks. The big money down there, they wanted him. That was a big reason why he's there.
Mm-hmm.
I should mention, too, Mark Stoops' name was in this category as well. And coming off a 4-8 season, I know he raised the standard there with, how many years? 7-8 years making a bowl game? But if he goes 4-8 again, I think they're yelling to get him out. Only problem is the buyout. And I threw this out hypothetically. A lot of people think this might be Kirk Ferentz's last year at Iowa. Mark Stoops' alma mater is Iowa. They might kind of work out a deal where, hey, that job's open. Isn't that your dream job? And he goes there. They don't have to pay the buyout to get rid of him. Kind of like Calipari left for Arkansas, and Kentucky didn't have to pay the buyout for him to go away. So just kind of a hypothetical thing there. But, yeah, if Stoops repeats what he just did this past year, they're going to run him out of town. He's a top 10 highest paid coach in college football.
Kirk Ferentz is never, ever going to be fired, nor will he ever quit. He will be like that Liberty commercial where the guy is standing in front of the Statue of Liberty. He's got a wax figure of himself. They'll just put that out there because Kirk Ferentz has been the coach at Iowa since well before Zach was born. I mean, he's just been there forever.
He beat Saban at LSU. He's been there
That's
forever.
Amazing.
But he's about to be 70. Eventually he's got to walk off into the sunset. Yeah. But that one to me, I just saw as
checks back. What are you talking about?
That's true. But Stoops, I can't see getting fired just because of the buyout. That's the same thing with Brian Kelly at LSU. Everyone's like, he better win a championship. Well, if not, what? They're not going to pay a massive buyout to get rid of him.
Belichick is back, but does Ferentz have a 26-year-old girlfriend to keep him young?
I don't believe he does, but the day is still young.
I did want to throw in there were two others that they said can't backslide, and that was Sam Pittman at Arkansas and Billy Napier at Florida. Look, a lot of goodwill how they finished the year, but both those guys have to either sustain and do exactly what they did this year or get better. They can't fall back and be 5-7 next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Florida overachieved. I think we all agree that Florida kind of got their stuff together, but they've got a brutal schedule again this upcoming season. So curious to see what happens there. And as far as like Sam Pittman at Arkansas, like I'm a little surprised that that's still happening. I mean, I know our guy John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks like did several shows like yelling, why did we put out this statement that we're rolling with Pittman for another year? I think Pittman's seat is hotter than a few of the other coaches that we mentioned.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, they also put in here Jeff Lebby, who went winless in the conference in year one. But to me, that almost was like when he signed on the dotted line, that had to be like, I need 3 to 4 years to turn this thing around.
Yeah.
Do you get 3 to 4 years in the NIL transfer portal era, though? Is that still a thing?
3 to 4 or 30 to 40? I mean, it's a long turnaround thing for them, I think.
Look, we've seen Diego Pavia in 1 year turn Vanderbilt from a god awful atrocity 66 team. So, you know, if Blake Shapen stays healthy this year, maybe Mississippi State pulls off a couple upsets of somebody. So who do we all pick real quick? Who was your pick for hot seat going into next year?
Venables,
Luke?
Venables and Pittman is 1B kind of.
Yeah, I agree. Venables then Pittman.
Okay, then I'll go Hugh Freeze. That's where I'll go.
Well, that's
who Luke wanted to say.
Well, but Venables is the answer, because it's also got to hurt Oklahoma fans that Texas is doing so well.
Yeah,
I mean, they both come in at the same time. Texas makes it to the championship game. Now they're in the Final Four of football, and Oklahoma goes to a bowl game and lets Navy run all over them and come back from a 14-0 deficit, which is usually insurmountable for Navy.
Yeah, the timing that, like, if Oklahoma would have joined the league a few years ago, I think it would have been the opposite, because I think Oklahoma was rolling and Texas was trying to figure everything out. So,
right.
They were firing Tom Herman and trying to find. And Sark's first year was abysmal. It's a good comparison too, because John Miller 2012, when Mizzou and A&M came in, they both had success. Mizzou was winning the East, but A&M had the Johnny Manziel Heisman year, and they were kind of rode that. So both programs kind of rode success. Texas comes in, instant hit in the SEC, and Oklahoma does this. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Oklahoma did have the hardest schedule by a long shot.
Yeah, no, the SEC definitely wanted to make sure Texas was happy with the new partnership. No question.
No doubt about that.
And Oklahoma
They also wanted to make sure that they were happy with that non-targeting call, and then when the field goal bounces over the upright, it doesn't get called. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and Zach has certainly has some fans that say Alabama gets all the breaks, but my God, Texas has got every break you can get coming into this conference. I've never seen anything like it.
You've never seen anything like it.
Never seen it. Been to 3 World's Fairs. Never seen anything like it.
You've never seen anything like it. Nothing like it at all.
I'm
Zach, not a fan of hyperbole at the end of the show here.
I'm never doing this with you again. You're so friendly when we're texting.
Luke and I talk almost every day, and we're actually very friendly with each other.
In closing, though, Luke, another 4-loss season for DeBoer. Come on, he can't survive 8-4 next year. Come on.
Well, no, he would survive, but it would. I mean, then he would be the 3rd-year hot seat guy. There's no question. I think his seat it's not on fire or anything. Feinbaum that's some clickbait stuff. I love Paul Feinbaum, I really do, but that's some clickbait stuff. I mean, I think everybody's willing to say, okay, you were in a tough situation this year, because I think everybody, at least when the Oklahoma game came around, and nobody's been more rah-rah Jalen Milroe than me. When the Oklahoma game came around and it was halftime, I was like, we need to do something different. And just
like stop Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Or just have trade Jackson Arnold for Jalen Milroe at halftime. See if we can do that. I mean, we're heading that way in college football anyway. We're going to have trades. Why not? But
so you admit you'd rather have Jackson Arnold than Jalen Milroe? That's what you just said?
No, I did. I was just
kind of like that's what you said.
Yeah, I think that is what you said.
I was kind of going along with your bad joke. That's all.
This is what I heard.
Hey, all I'll say is Kalen DeBoer, it's nice that Bill Belichick is in college football now, because at least somebody will be there to take the heat off of his bad wardrobe. You know what I'm saying?
If they don't show his girlfriend in the stands like they did with A.J. McCarron and his wife back in the day, that's TV gold.
Brent Musburger will come back for that.
Yeah, put Musburger on that. My Lord.
Yeah. Coming out of retirement to call North Carolina games.
Who would have thought Lane Kiffin is getting back with his ex-wife and Bill Belichick has the 26-year-old girlfriend?
Wow, so he's pulling the alley larder. See, I brought it full circle. Wow.
Good work.
Look, who is Bama's quarterback? Is it Ty Simpson next year or Keelan Russell?
Look, I've been saying Ty Simpson because my co-host Jimmy Stein has me convinced of that, and I do like Ty Simpson. But the more I watch Keelan Russell, and I know he's out of high school. He was National Player of the Year. I think it's not crazy to think true freshmen can come in and play quarterback anymore. And so I'm going to go Ty Simpson, but it's with Keelan Russell's with a bullet.
8-4 DeBoer. You said he survives. His job may survive, but he might be stabbed by an Alabama fan. So there's that.
Well, I meant like survives the job. I didn't mean he's going to actually make it living to the next year. That will be more difficult.
Harvey Updike has kids, right? They might, they might come after him. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On. Our
never doing this show again. This is why I don't do this show with y'all.
Alabama faces a little bit of an obstacle, and you just run away. You can't take it.
Zach can only come on again if Luke is here, and Luke, you can only come on if Zach is here. That's the rule. It is the SEC Squad. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. And, of course, for your second listen, you can check out some of our other great podcasts. Check out Locked On Auburn with Zach, Locked On Bama with Luke, Locked On Mizzou with John Miller. And, hey, let us know in the comments, angry Big Ten fans, how much your conference is better, even though you haven't won 13 of the last 18 national championships. I'll just say it again. For all of you guys, we'll talk to you guys next week right here on the SEC Squad.